Hey guys, in this video, we are going to learn about the Linux privilege escalation enumeration. Yes, this is a TryHackMe room and we are going to explore that, and you have to know what does the privilege escalation mean. So privilege escalation usually means if you get an access to a system as a lower permission to get higher permission as a root user or an admin user. So if you get higher permission, then you can just pretty much do a lot of things in the target system, right? So that is what privilege escalation means, from lower permission to higher permission. So that you can call it as root user or the admin user. So more technically, it is the exploitation of a vulnerability or a design flow or a configuration in an operating system or application to gain unauthorized access to resources that are usually restricted. Okay, so that is what privilege escalation is. So you can just read these contents by yourself. Like, privilege escalation is crucial because it lets you gain system administrator level of access, which allows you to perform actions such as you can just reset the password once you get access to a system as admin or root user after privilege escalation, right? So you can just do a lot of things like this. So this is something that you should explore. I'm just concentrating on the most important things. Okay, so let's move on. So yeah, I just started that and we are moving to the task 2, which is about enumeration. So in the enumeration, I just started the mission. I can just connect it using the VPN connection, or I can use any other mission. So this is the credentials that I have. So the password in this case is John. So now I have an SSH session. So in this SSH session, we are going to interact with it. So the first thing that we are going to do is to connect to this using the credentials, or you can just use the missions that they provided, like this mission. So whichever you like to use, you can just use that one. Okay, it's okay to use anything. So let's move on to the OS enumeration. So first we have to learn some basic commands of operating systems that you use in the Linux systems, like the host name, uname, proc version, etc issue, ps, cron, dbkg. So these are some of the commands that you should know. Okay, the host name is a command which will return the host name of the target mission, although this value can easily be changed or have a relatively meaningless string like ubuntu, something like this. In some cases, it can provide information about the target system roles within the corporate network. Okay, so in this case, we can just check the host name of our mission. Like we just got SSH access into a mission using the credentials that they provided for us to practice the privilege escalation things. So let's enter the command host name here, and the host name of this particular mission that we have is the Linux enumeration. So let's compare it with our own Kali Linux mission. So when I search for the host name in my mission, it is Kali, right? So the mission that we got access to has the Linux enumeration as host name. Okay, so this is what it is. So now we have a command called the uname -a, which will print system information, giving you additional details about the kernel used by the system. This is useful when searching for any potential kernel vulnerabilities that could lead to privilege escalation. Yes, you can just issue this command to know your version of your operating system. Sometimes there will be some kernel level vulnerabilities that you can just exploit to gain higher level access. So that is why the uname -a command is highly essential to know. So our target mission has this particular version. So other than that, we have the proc version. The proc file system provides information about the target system process. You will find proc on many different Linux flavors, making it an essential tool to have in your arsenal. So looking at the proc version may give you information on the kernel version or what compiler was used to create it. So the results will look like this, right? The compiler information and some other informations, right? So in this example, the output is as follows. Like we have the 6.8.41 generic is the kernel version. So when you cat this out, you will get the kernel version. You will get the build mission that compile the kernel. So you can see the build mission that compile the kernel, and you get the architecture, right? The compiler used to build the kernel, and the Ubuntu package version of the GCC compiler, and the linker used during the kernel build. So these are some of the information that you will get while using this command. If you use this, then you will get these kinds of information on your target mission. Other than that, we also have the etc issue command. When you cat that out, systems can also be identified using this So this file usually contains some information about the operating system but can easily be customized or changed. Also, any file containing system information can be customized or changed. For a clear understanding of the system, it is always good to take a look of these. So the etc issue, sometimes you will give you the version related information like this, which will show you in this case represents the Ubuntu version running on the host. And the ps command is an effective way to see the running process on Linux system. When you issue the ps command in your terminal, it will show the processes running on your current shell. So this is our target. When you enter ps, you will be able to see the running commands like bash is running and ps is running. But if I enter that in my mission, this is what it is, right? In the ps, you have to issue the ps aux. The aux option will show process for all users. The a displays the user that launches the process. U means it shows the process that are not attached to a terminal. X, right? So yeah, looking at the ps aux command output, you can have a better understanding of the system and potential vulnerabilities, right? So this is what we usually use. And the ps axjf, the axjf option will show processes from all users. A include processes that have no controlling. X users job format output. J, right? So J means job format output. And for a tree view, you can just issue the F. An example of such tree can be seen below. So this is how it looks like when you issue this command. And the cron is another important thing in Linux. So cron is a time-based job scheduler in Linux that allows users and the system to schedule commands or scripts to run automatically at specified intervals. You will often find cron jobs being used for tasks like backup, log rotation, or running maintenance scripts during enumeration. So this is something that I would like you to read and understand the concepts by yourself. I will show you the most important things. So you have to explore about the ps by yourselves. If you're watching this video, pause this video and open up a new tab and search for the ps commands and study it by yourself. So if I tell you everything, then it's like a spoon feeding. You won't be able to have the capability to learn by alone. Okay, so if you research and if you gain some knowledge, then it is a capability as an ethical hacker you should definitely need to have. Let me check everything is good. So now we are moving to the next one. Okay, so in the cron tab, you can this is something important. So yeah, you can start examining the etc cron tab, so and listing the contents of var spool cron or etc cron.t to see what's scheduled and more importantly who it's running as. You will explore how to actually exploit misconfigured cron jobs later, but for now it's important to include them in your enumeration checklist. I will show you what it is, guys, don't worry about it. So yeah, so the output should look like this. This is something that I recommend you to read by yourself. And the dpkg command tools allows us to query all listed packages and their version. This is especially helpful in privilege escalation attempts when trying to find vulnerable binaries with non-exploits. The command to list all installed software is dpkg-l. When you issue this command, it will list all the installed softwares. This is how it looks like. Okay, so that is why we use the dpkg-l to list the software names and its version and its architecture and its description. You will be able to get that in your terminal itself. So these are some of the commands that you should know. Now we are moving to the practicals. So what is the host name of the target host? So in order to find the host name, you can just issue the host name command, which will give you the host name information, right? So what Linux kernel version of the target host? So what is the Linux kernel version? So if you want to find the kernel version, you have to issue the uname -a to get the kernel related information, right? So we get the version, right? What version of Ubuntu is running on the host? You have to find the Ubuntu version that is running on the host. So what do you think is the version is? You can just issue the cat etc issue to get that particular version, right? So now you can see it's basically 24.04.1 LTS, right? So this is how you find that Never copy anything from here. You have to do it by yourself in your own computer. So what is the full path of the script run by root every 5 minutes? So this is about the scheduling. Like there is a script run by root every 5 minutes in this target mission. So you have to find the script that runs every 5 minutes as root. So in order to find that, the scheduled jobs, you have to know about that. Where the scheduled jobs will store in Linux, it's in the etc cron tab, right? So cron tab stores the scheduled jobs and all those things. So this is its practical demonstration. As you can see, every 5 minutes this will run the backet.sh, which is a file in the root directory, will run every 5 minutes as root user, right? So that will be available in the cron tab, right? So while catting this cron tab, you will be able to see the schedule processes here, right? So now we have the entire path for that file. So what is the full version of app mirror? In order to find the full version of a installed application, you can just issue the dpkg -l command in the target and you will be able to see the information. So in this case, we have the app armor, right? So let me check if it is app armor. Yeah, if it's app armor, so now we have the full version information. Here it is the version, right? So now we have the full version information about it, right? So this is how you will be able to find that. Now we are moving to the user enumeration, and the commands that you should know here is these, like id, env, history, sudo -l, etc password. So the id command will provide a general overview of the user's privilege level and group memberships. It is worth remembering that the id command can also be used to obtain the same information for another user, as shown below. You can see when you issue id, you will be able to see the uid, which is the user id, the group id, and the groups in which that particular user is, something like that. So id space username will provide information of that particular user, right? So other than that, we also have the env command, which is the environment. So this command will show the environmental variables, right? These are some of the environment variables. The path variable may have a compiler or a scripting language. Example, Python is a scripting language, right? That could be used to run code on the target system or be leveraged for privilege escalation. And the history command will help you to find the commands that is entered in the computer or in the Linux system before, right? Whatever commands you entered in your terminal before, you will be able to get that using the history command. And the sudo -l command will list the privileges, and which will make you, sometimes will give you something to become root. The target system may be configured to allow users to run some or all commands with root privileges. The sudo -l command can be used to list all commands your user can run using sudo. Depending on the configuration, you may be required to input your current user's password when requiring sudo command. If you know the current user password, then you can just issue this command. Otherwise, you can't issue this command. You have to know the current user password to issue the sudo -l command to list the privileges. Other than that, we also have the etc passwd file, which can be used to find the user related informations, which will contain the username and some other informations. While the output can be long and bit intimidating, it can be easily be cut and converted to your useful list for brute force attacks by issuing commands like this cut command, right? So you will be able to get only the user information by issuing this. Okay, so if you issue only etc passwd, you will be able to see something like this. If you want only the username, then you can just cut it down using this command. Okay, so other than that, we also have the grep home, which will grep the usernames from the home directory. Like, remember that this will return all users, some of whom are system or service users. That would not be very useful. Another approach could be to grep for home, as real users will most likely have for their folders under home directory. So usually home directory in Linux has the user related information. Let me move to the home directory. Like in this case, you can just move to the home directory to see we have 3 different types of users. One of them is John, the next one is Matt, and then the one is Ubuntu, right? So these are the 3 different users. When you cat the etc passwd, which will also include this, but most common users will have a home directory, right? So you can see Matt, John, and the Ubuntu will be somewhere here, right? So which will be also available here, but most common users will have a home directory. Okay, and there is a root. Okay, anyways, let's move on. Print the environment variables. What is the value of lang? So if you want to print the environment variables, you can just issue the env command, which will print the environment variables. We have to find the value of lang. If you want to find that, you can just issue the grep command for that to find the lang. This is how you find it. So now we have the value of lang, right? So this is how you can just grab it. Okay, so that's cool, right? So other than that, what is the flag in your history? If you want to know which are the commands that is entered in your terminal before, you can just issue the history command. The person who created this room entered this in the history, like echo thm history is not safe. So here it is. So he also entered some other commands like hostname. I think this is what I entered, and US uname minus a. I don't know, man. But yeah, this is something that I entered. Right, so this is what we enter, right? So this is something to keep in mind. So what is the full path of the command you are allowed to run with elevated privileges? If you want to list the privileges, you have to issue the sudo -l command, right? So here it is. So no passability without a password. You can just see this is the one that they are asking for. So this is the full path of the command that we are allowed to run with the elevated privileges. What is the username of the mailing list manager? If you want to know more about that, then you have to go to the etc passability to know the mailing list manager. You have to find it from here. It is difficult, so you can just issue the grep command. Like we have to find the manager, right? So let's issue the manager, the mailing list manager, something like that. I'm just putting the wildcard, so which helps me to find something which has included manager. So I'm not able to find, so it's good to use the -i thing in this case. Here it is. Now we have the manager. Here is the mailing list manager. So yeah, grep -i helped me for that, and the username in this case is list. So now we are moving to the network enumeration. In this case, we are just mostly focusing on the ifconfig and netstat command. So the ifconfig command is something that you should know, right? So we will be able to identify the IP address, the MAC address, the network interfaces using this ifconfig command, right? So you know how to use it, right? So I'm not going too deep into it. So the netstat command is again something to note. Like if you want to know the interfaces using the netstat command, then you can just issue the -a in netstat, which will list those things, right? So as you can see, show all listening ports. Sorry, so in this case it will show only the listening ports and established connections. If you issue netstat -a, it will show the established connections and the listening ports. Other than that, we also have netstat -at or -au can also be used to list TCP or UDP protocols. AT is for the TCP and AU is for the UDP protocol, right? So let's list that out. So let's list UDP. So here it is. If you can see the protocol here, everything is UDP. If you want TCP, then you can just issue a T for TCP. So this is how you can find that. So netstat -l list ports in listening mode. If you only want to know about the listening mode things, then you can just issue -l, which will show you only the listening states. So if you issue A, then you will be able to see the connected, listening, and all those things. So this is something to keep in mind. So other than that, we also have the netstat -l, which will list the network usage statistics by protocol. So this is how the output looks like. So this is something that you should try. Okay, other than that, you also have the TPLN, and this output will look like this. So yeah, you have to try that. So here you can see the netstat -a, and now you probably mostly use in CTFs or write-ups. You will be able to see this command, which can display all sockets. In netstat, the -a, which will display all the sockets. The -n, which will not do not resolve names, and the O is for display timers. So let's issue this. Before that, let's have a look at the questions. What is the name of the network interface other than loopback? So we'll be able to find that using netstat or ifconfig command. So in order to find that using the netstat, you have to issue the netstat -i. Here it is, right? So other than the loopback address, we also have one interface, which is NS5 in this case. right? So you can also issue the ifconfig command for finding that. Other than loopback address, we will be able to get the interface, right? So this is how you find that. So what port other than 22 is listening on the host? You can just issue the netset command for this for minus a and no, which will give you a lot of information. So now we have to find the port related information, right? So let's see. You can see the minus a and no, which will also list the local address, which will also contain the ports, right? So we have to find port from there, right? So you also have the minus tpln, right? So some other commands are available here. Show all listening ports and established connections. So if you want to show all the listening ports and established connections, so yeah, you can just issue only minus a in this case. So let me check if that is working. Here it is, some of the ports. So I will issue the minus a no, which feels good for me. Here it is, which includes what I want. Here is the part that we want, the local address part. In the local address part, you can see there's a lot of other ports are there. Other than 22, we also have the 53, 68 and some others. So in this case, you can see the question is asking what port other than 22 is listening on the host. You have to find the listening one. So you can just issue the L here for listening one, right? So I think you have to issue minus L only for listening. So these are some of the listening. And I think A. Here it is, you can see the state here is listening. So you have to find other than 22, the listening state is the port 53, right? So now we are moving to the file enumeration. You have to know some basic commands like ls for listing, ls minus l for listing with permission, ls minus la for listing hidden files. So yeah, you can just get the secret. If it is hidden, it has a single quote, or sorry, a dot at the beginning. So, and we are going to learn about the find command, some of the find usage, find dot minus name flag1 dot txt, which will find the file named flag1 dot txt in the current directory and subdirectories recursively. So find slash home minus name flag1 dot txt, which will find file names flag1 dot txt in the home directory and subdirectories recursively. Minus tape d find directory named configs under root. So like that, you will be able to read those contents from there. So that's something that I'm just giving it to you to explore. And here we are at the end. So in this case, you have to know this command. This is a command that will use to find files with the SUID bit, which allows us to run the file with a higher privilege level than the current user. The thing that is not mentioned there has a GDFO bins website. If you issue this command, you will be able to see some SUID related bits. You can just search for that in the GDFO bins and use those binaries. For example, if you find 7-zip, then you can just issue this command for becoming root. So this is something that is not covered here, but I'm just showing that for you. Okay, so yeah. So let's move on. So what are the contents of the secret file in your home directory? So basically, when I enter who am I here, I am John, right? So let me move to the John directory. In the John, this is our home directory, right? So what are the contents of the secret file in your home directory? I could not be able to find any commands. When I enter ls minus l, there is total 0. When I enter ls minus la, there is some hidden files called the hidden secret.txt. If you want to find these, then you can also issue the find command. For finding in the home directory, you can just issue the dot command. And for finding the name of the file, you can just issue the minus name. And you can just issue the star, which pretty much means that something secret. So you are going to find that by, if you don't want errors, then you can just issue the 2 greatest /dev/null, and unfortunately we will not be able to find that. So yeah, you can just issue the star at the end also. Now you will be able to see. So yeah, so this pretty much means that there is a file called secret No, yeah, there is a file in which the term secret is there. So I don't know what is before the secret, and I don't know what is after the secret. If you want to find like that a term of a file named secret, you can just issue this command. Okay, now we have the information. You can just scan that out to get the flag. So here it is. So other than that, find a file that has TryHackMe in its name. What is its content? So yeah, let's issue the same command. So by changing this to TryHackMe, what it will do is to find from this home directory, but in this case we have to find from the entire system. So for that, I'm just removing that. I find slash will find from all of the server and minus name for the name of the file, which will contain TryHackMe, and I don't know what is before TryHackMe or after TryHackMe. So there is a term TryHackMe is what we are going to find using this command from the entire server. It's just loading. Let's see if it works or not. Here it is. We have the TryHackMe flag.txt, which will be available in the var local directory. Here it is. Found the flag. So these are some of the commands that as an ethical hacker you should definitely need to know. So that's why I just created this room. Yeah, this is something that you should know. So if you want to find development tools and support languages, you can just issue the find slash minus name Perl star. If you issue comments like this without the two greatest slash dev slash null, which is this, you might probably end with errors like permission denied errors. If you don't want that, so that is why I'm just recommending you to use two greatest slash dev slash null. If you don't use this, then you will be able to get a lot of permission denied. But if you use that, you will be only be able to see the things that you want without the permission denied. I hope you are okay, or you it's clear for you. Okay, so that's pretty much about it, guys. You learned a lot from this video, and something that I'm just giving it to you is to explore some of those things. I just explored a lot of things that you should definitely need to learn. So there is something that I didn't explain, so that is something that you can just read that by yourself. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video is informative for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.